Welcome back to my channel. This is Tracy with Artful Creations by Tracy. Today starts a new series I'm calling Throwback Thursday Technique. This is where I will show you how to use your stash and products that many of us have, especially if you've been crafting for a very long time. They may not always be about cards. In fact, today's is not. Now, I am showing you a few things here that are very inexpensive, such as the 3-pack of mini canvases that I bought from the Dollar Tree, an old cigar box that I picked up at a secondhand store, and this goodie container that I got from a present a while back, those paper clips, and this paint can that I bought many, many years ago that I created for my mother-in-law, who sadly passed away several years ago. That's why I have it to show you. And then CDs. Everyone has CDs that we no longer use. And let's face it, these are everywhere and abundant and make amazing, wonderful little gifts here. I made these back in 2010. Let's get started with our first project. I'm going to show you two projects today. The first one is altering those fun little paper clips by embossing them. I have 3 types of embossing ink pads. As you see, I've had those first 2 for many years, and even though they look a little funky, they are still pretty inky. I also have the newer one by Tim Holtz and that refill. Now, mind you, I've had that refill bottle for well over 10 years, and you see, it's not that important to buy a refill. I also showed you the embossing powder that we're going to use from Stamp Affair, something that I've had in my stash for a very long time, but it still works perfectly. And to start this off, I'm going to use the Versamark embossing pad. We're just going to press those paper clips into the pad and then bring it over to the coffee filter, put on the embossing powder, and then heat that up with my heat gun. We use the silver embossing powder first, and then we are going to use the gold for the second one. And as you see, I like to put that embossing powder away right away after I'm done using it, because I can be a little klutzy and I'm just so worried that I'm going to knock that over. So we're going to just repeat that process for the gold. And I'm using reverse tweezers to hold that little tiny paper clip for 2 reasons. Number 1, it actually locks it into place so it doesn't fall or slip. And number 2, I can get nice and close to it and not burn my hand with that heat gun. I'm going to repeat this process again for both paper clips. I want them to look well embossed, and they will have a really nice shine on it when they are done. Now keep in mind, I did choose silver and gold, and obviously silver on silver probably isn't going to look very silvery, but it does actually give it a really nice shine. But you can use any color embossing powder that you have. It doesn't really matter. As long as it shows up, it's going to work out perfectly fine. You can find these really fancy paper clips probably in any oh boy, what are those stores called? Like a Staples or an Office Depot. Words just evade me sometimes. I actually have quite a few of these fancy paper clips in different styles. I know that they're still available, but maybe you can find them even at a secondhand store. So that's going to wrap up the altering of the paper clips. Our next project is going to be altering of the CDs. And I'm showing you these that I made 10 years ago, and I still have the same type of paper that I did for those CDs. They make amazing ornaments and gifts. Now I'm showing you some paper that I had in my stash for a long time as well. I decided that I'm going to use that pop-out sheet with the matching paper and bring in a piece of paper from the 4x6 vintage Christmas collection from my stash as well. Now, what I'm showing you here is a dinosaur. This is a cutting tool from a company called Lighthouse Memories. This is pre-Cricut, pre-Silhouette, and for sure pre-Brother Scan and Cut. They are no longer in business, but I know that If you want one of these, they are still available on eBay and a pretty reasonable price. Now this is, it's made of very hard plastic. I was showing you a whole bunch of templates and those cutting shapes to the right that they match each template. What I'm looking for is the circular one that I have used many times. There it is. And as you can tell, it is really well loved and used. Now I'm going to pull out that cutting pad. It is again hard plastic. That is the cutting tool. And the shape that I could not find is actually already in that tool. I really looked high and low. I'm like, where is that thing? How you use this is you take that template and you put it over your item that you want to create a mat for, or in this case, exact same size. Now this cutting tool has little doohickeys all around it that match up with the inner circle on the template. It has a little slide that moves up and down so that way you can keep it up so it doesn't cut your paper just yet, because what you want to do is move that little cutting implement to the size of the circle or shape that you want, and then remove the template, and then you go ahead and take it and swivel it all around to cut out that template. Now this didn't cut out quite well. I'm a little rusty, haven't done this in a few years, so I'm going to make it just a hair larger for my CD. I do remember that it needed to be a little bit larger as I was doing this, and I'm going to cut out 2 more because I have decided that now I'm going to cover the back as well as the front. I've moved up, as they would say, and decided that's what we're going to do here. So now I'm going to take some ribbon and just cut a piece of ribbon that's going to go to my onto my CD. Real simple, easy to use. I'm going to use the 3-in-1 beacon glue. This stuff reminds me of hot glue, only in the cold version, which obviously is much better. And it, I was trying to pull off the stringies that it leaves behind. And it's really forgiving, so therefore you can slide things and put them into place very easily. And I'm just going to put the ribbon down, and then I'm going to put my back down, put that in place, and then I'll flip it over and put the top one into place. And then I'm going to set it aside to dry so that, because it was really wet. And then I'm going to decide what it is I'm going to use to decorate the front of my CD. And again, these things can make great Christmas gifts. Now that we are all dry, I have my pieces that I'm going to be using. I show you that I just tore that piece of paper off of that 4x6. I pulled out the bell from the pop-out pieces as well as that little tiny snowman. I found a wooden stamp set in my collection of many wooden stamps that I own. And then I'm going to use the Vintage Photo Distress ink. I really love to distress and ink edges, and I thought this really would make this look finished, more finished, if you will. And so therefore I'm going to ink all around the CD. I'm going to slightly ink the strip of paper that I brought, that I tore as well. Oh, and I also added that altered paper clip to that piece. And then I'm going to just add a little bit of the residual ink from the brush onto my sentiment, which I stamped out on a scrap piece of paper. And then I'm going to lay out how I want this laid out. I added foam tape to the back of the bells, and I'll do that off camera. And I appreciate you joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I hope you will join me for another Throwback Thursday technique. Thanks, and have a very blessed day.